back, everybody. Good evening, Dale.
Howard.
We're a bit later than usual tonight, mate.
A little later,
Oh, yeah. Mate, technology. You got to love it.
It's great when it works.
Yeah. But we're finally there, and we've had a little change behind us again, so I like to keep mixing it up, and I covered the mirrors up, and now I've exposed them again, trying to get the light right. Freshen up. Talking about freshen up, what about this?
Hey. Nice threads.
Hey? Pretty cool.
I liked your shirt so much last time. I thought I'd get one myself.
I did score a couple of them, so that was pretty good. And this one here, I put it on, and obviously I've lost a couple of kgs, so I think this might have been a brand new one that might have been a bit smaller size, because it feels a little bit
snug.
A bit snug, but it's all right.
Very good.
So welcome back. So I think we're up to number 10 now.
Yes.
And we've got this one and then one more to go.
Almost at the end of the bio.
We are. So going to lead straight in with the fact that we've sold everything up pretty much in Broken Hill now. We're in that transition phase, and it was a little bit hard putting the photos together because I've got timelines, but we went through a phase where we were actually travelling backwards and forwards on a regular basis, and remembering it's a 14-hour trip each way.
Yes, it's a long trip.
And I probably stupidly chose to move everything myself. So I had a trailer and all there, and we'll get into that as we go through the program. So I'll try and pull that together as we go.
We do jump around a bit, but it'll make sense at the end.
It will make sense at the end. So straight up, the old lovely XR8 in front of the motel. So the motel, I ended up splitting it up. I sold the lease first, then I sold the freehold and moved that on. And then the house that we renoed in the last episode, managed to sell that as well. And whilst all that's going on, I'd purchased a block of land in Wollongong and was working through the process then to find a builder, draw some plans, go through the council process and all those sorts of things. And these first couple of photos with the XR8 there, I borrowed the level off my brother and brought that over from the hill just to work out where to put the house, so that, you know, if you're standing in the kitchen and you're looking out through the window, what are you going to see and all those sorts of things. So that's what these photos were all about. And it's interesting to look at that now and see how much it's been built in around us.
Absolutely.
Because there's another set of houses below us now that weren't even in these photos. So then I'd worked, had to find a builder. And I was down at the Summernats, and I was talking to Fitzy about the dramas of looking at display homes and nothing worked and all those sorts of things. And he said, look, there's a guy down here, that he used to go skiing with from Canberra, that originally was from Yass, and he'd moved to Nowra.
Okay.
So not far down the road. And got that information off him and had a bit of a yarn about that, and then rang Dean up and had a talk to him, and he come up and had a look at the block, and we were able to do a deal. So Dean Hess ended up being my builder, and he did the house and the driveways, and then I had a separate contract with another guy to do the shed. So when they just started to cut the block for the house, I paid a bit extra and flattened the whole thing out, which when Dean come in, he went, what have you done? I've done, oh, well, I've got to build a shed, and all that sort of stuff. So
got to be big.
Flattened it out, and the little tractor there, really, I'd never seen one being used before. You might have seen them, but they've got like a GPS thing on it, and they set it up, and it runs around and just makes the whole thing dead level.
Everything,
Oh, yeah, incredible.
You see them on the golf courses when they're building or redoing holes and lots of stuff. They can contour and do all sorts of things.
So that was really cool. So
nifty.
We ended up with this big flat expanse. So the block's about 2,300 square metres, and there's a bit of loss on the side, you know, where it slopes away. So first things first, we've got to get the shed in.
Priority one.
And we were required to pier it, which out in the hill that doesn't happen, but this block definitely had some fill in it. So they were like 1.8 metre piers, and then once they were in, old mate that I found to do the concrete got organised, and that's the slab.
You're sure that's not the house, Howard?
No, that's the shed, mate. That's the shed down the back. And the funny shape there, the block has got a bit of a weird angle on the back of it, and I got a 4 metre building exclusion, so that's as far out to the boundary as I could make it. And that's the slab down, obviously, with the pipes. So we've got a bit of a bathroom that involved in the well. And this is all happening while I'm now trying to get organised to move stuff at the same time. So what I did was I ended up renting a unit just up the road, about a K up the road from where the house is. So we had somewhere to stay. So the plan was to rent that for 6 months. It ended up being 12 months. And that became our base in Wollongong while we were moving. And then it had a 2-car garage on it.
Okay.
So we started moving all of the boxes over and stacking them into the unit each time I came over. So of course I'd sold my Land Cruiser.
Yes.
And bought the XR8. So I needed another Land Cruiser to tow everything. So went through the process and we did a bit of a car shuffle when you see that going on when you look at that.
Well, it was a big trailer.
It was a big trailer. And it got a fair workout because I had to move all my tools and the workshop and the bench and then all of our furniture. And so each time we came over to keep an eye on what was going on, we brought a load with us. I'll never do it again.
No.
Never again.
No.
Yeah.
Once bitten, twice shy.
I think in today's money, it's probably between 10 and 20 grand to shift it all, but I think it'd probably be worthwhile.
Yeah, you probably spent that in fuel getting over and back all the time.
So that was the new rig, and that was a couple of years old, come out of a lease, and a mate of a mate that was a car dealer in Adelaide. I got it through him, tidied it up, give it the old HA treatment, made it look a bit good. So part of that process then was the Magna had to go. So the photo there from the last episode, the Magna had been really good, but it needed to move on. And my plan was to move Heather into the XR8, and then I'd have the Cruiser.
Seemed like a good plan.
Good plan at the time, and you'll see that in a minute. So what's happening here now, that big auger they've got going on there, you can see the amount of fill virtually on the block there. The house had to have 6 metre piers. So it was about 30 grand under the floor to set the house up, and the old ready mix there was plenty of them come in. So the bits of Rio sticking out of the ground there, they were 6 metres long. So the shed's going up.
It's a big shed. It's a big shed.
So I had a contractor there, and we got on pretty good in the end. But yeah, he was it was a bit of an unusual shape, and he was struggling a little bit with the roof at times. But we got there and sorted it out. And of course, it's Wollongong, so it rained. And it rained and it rained, and the shed guy said, I can't get in on the site, so I got somebody gravel dropped off and pushed around to make sure he could get in and keep going. And obviously the slab for the house is down now, and they're starting to unload some timber and stuff. So it went up like they do, it went up pretty quick once they get started. And that's obviously from the shed looking back at the house. So being a plumber's son, one thing that when I checked how much rain we get here,
it's a bit different of the hill.
It became very aware to me I need to put lots of stormwater in. So all that piping there was, first of all, to get all of the stormwater so I can use it to get some tanks for my gardens and my lawns. But also with all these roofs and driveways to make sure we get it off the block and out the front. So we had a fair bit of effort going in there. And then the usual progression, and was really good working with Dean because he basically let me be on site. So I was a bit like the site foreman.
Almost project managing your own project.
Yeah, driving everyone mad. Driving them crazy.
So just normal, Howard.
Normal, yeah. And Dean said to me a couple of times, it's not a show car. I said, no, but it's a show house, isn't it? Yeah, so it was all progressing pretty well. I got really frustrated with how much mess they make.
Yeah.
And not only just work and making a mess, they'd have lunch and leave all their stuff on the ground, so I'd be barking at them and driving them crazy.
Yep, they would have enjoyed that.
Yeah, so there I am, look at that, on the job. So it's starting to take a bit of shape now, so rendered front and then bricks at the back. And then I got a picture of the XR8 there, because Heather wasn't impressed.
No, wasn't a fan.
Not a fan. First of all, she didn't like the look of it, and she didn't really like driving it. So we had the discussion, and I ended up, my mate Johnny Williams had the Ford dealer, him and his son had gone into a place in Mildura.
Okay.
And Heather wanted something small, so I was talking to John and ended up buying a Honda Euro for her, and traded gave the XR8 away. So it was a couple of year old, and didn't have a lot of Ks on it. And I'd love to have that car today, because it'd be a really cool cruiser just to have. But
there are not many of them around, really.
I can't remember the car. It didn't have a lot of Ks on it, and I can't remember what I got, but it wasn't a lot of money. And we bought the little Honda, and it was a really good car, and that was the runabout. And we ended up leaving that at the unit over here, so we'd trip backwards and forwards in the cruiser. And that stayed over here. And we got rid of that to go to the GT.
Yes.
So that was a nice little car, and then obviously we're progressing now, so I've got all the front yard just about ready to get the lawns down and some fences. And the plan here was that once I've got everything finished, wound up in the hill, and I moved into the house, my plan then was to spend probably the next 8 to 12 months finishing the yard off myself. So instead of paying landscapers and all, I'd actually do that myself and not be looking for a job or setting up a new business at that point in time. So Dean gave me a hand on a couple of weekends. We put the timber work inside for the bathrooms and the dirty room down the back. And I put all of the Rio and stuff inside, and then got the gyprock guys to come in, put the ceilings in and the gyprock. And then I give the floors a nice coat of paint, and that's how we all see it in the program today.
Bigger than my house.
Probably.
It's a good size.
It's a good size. I think it's 240 square metres plus the verandas and stuff on it. So yeah, it's a good size. And then that's the photo that was at the end of last episode. And the bit of gyprock that's not done there is where the office is now. So at that point in time I hadn't made up my mind exactly what I wanted to do with the office. So the car's in its new home, but I'd clearly made the decision that I wasn't going to start that until I could really focus on it. So I need to get the yard finished, get everything organised. And then I knew that if I didn't sort of get into it and work flat out on it, it would never get done. So I went actually and got some shirts made with Astill Enterprises on them, and got a work shirt and bought some the sort of pants I wear today actually in the workshop, so that I went out there to work 8 to 4 to get the car built. And that's pretty much the way it worked out. But before I could do that, I need to get the yard organised. So
that was a big effort.
I talked to a few people about how much rain you have, and it's surprising how often it doesn't rain here. Like, it rains a lot, but then it's quite often you'll get a month you don't get any rain, and then all of a sudden you get 4 inches or something. So I put 30,000 litres on in tanks, and I probably could have done with some more because we've run out a couple of times. But so I got the tanks done, and you can start seeing the yard there with the stormwater, and then I need to do the concrete, and I think we've got like 600 square metres of concrete or something around the place. And then all the timber work. So I did all of that, and the gardens and the lawns. Got some instant lawn in. The rabbit hutch. The Hutch Mahal.
It's a big rabbit hutch.
It's still there. They haven't got a rabbit, but it's still there. So that's making a bit of progress. So that's that side I'm talking about. So that's it. If there's one thing I should have done when I built the house, is I should have put some terracing on that, because it's a bit hard on the ankles when you're down there working.
I can vouch for that.
So I've got the yard pretty much sorted. So we've still got gardens and things to do, but I've got the bulk of it out of the way. So now it's time to get onto this car. So me being me as usual, it's like, okay, we need a name, we need a logo. You know, we need to get some concept drawings done. And at that point in time, Ryan Carter was doing expression session at Street Machine, and I'd met him at one of the events or whatever, and had a chat to him about doing a design for me. So I knew what I wanted. So I said to him, right, I want you to draw it, but I want you to, roll pen the front and do this and do that and change that. And pretty much came up with that, what we've got there now, and that's what I built in the first instance. And I like to do that and have it on the wall and go, that's what I'm going to build, and then try and stick to it and not change your mind too much. And as we've seen on the last one, I basically started with a very bare bones 6-cylinder. And that's the shot there when it was leaving Broken Hill to come over. What I hadn't shown last time was the fact that I'd gone RRS. And front and rear. So I put the coilover rear in it with the Watts linkage, and the McPherson strut front end with the power rack and steering. And then the motor that was in it was a 302. And at that point in time, with all our tripping backwards and forwards, we dropped into seen Gary and Deb Myers quite a bit because they're in Narrandera, so we used to split it and either travel to Hay or to travel to Narrandera, going each way. So we ended up staying a bit with them, and at this point in time he was doing the Silver Bullet and I'm doing this one. So he built me an engine and I give him a hand with the Bullet. So we used to stay there. I think at one point in time there I stayed a week with him and give him a hand with whatever I think we're doing the bonnet. And then at that same time I saw some parts for this little fella, and it was just a nice, typical Gary Myers, nice rev, solid cam, made 375 flywheel, but really worked well through the torque curves and all with the manual. And
very streetable.
Yeah, it was a really good little engine.
Yeah.
And of course I did the usual grind ups and all that sort of thing. So that was where we were at when it got to here. So then now in Wollongong, I've started doing, drip gutters, the plenum, and then starting to set up that engine bay, door gaps, getting all those mechanicals. So this was all like trial fit, make it work, make everything clean. And the car was never built supposedly not to be judged, but of course it was judged eventually. But the plan was to build the car how I wanted it, and streetable, and not how I thought the judges wanted it.
Yeah.
So sort of back to my roots where I started back in the 80s. So making a bit of progress with that, and lo and behold, it's cake time.
Gotta love a cake.
Gotta love a cake. Look at the size of that sucker, eh?
Mate, there's more candles on there than, anyway.
Well, the big 5A, mate.
Yeah,
the big 5A.
You've got to celebrate.
So there I am with Louise in the bar, and you can see now the bar, I've got that front room pretty much sorted now.
Yep.
And I found a couple, when I seen the background here, I thought I'd better show a couple of photos of that. So this was the initial first stage where I got myself a pool table. Not that I'm a pool player, but I thought they looked cool. And got the trophies set up, and then set the bar up as well. And
that's our filming studio, Howard.
That's all changed now, Dale, of course. So you see the front of the bar there, it's got records and all that sort of stuff on it. So a lot of that's changed now, and it's been 15 years, and things evolve and change, and we've got a telly out here and no pool table and a bigger fridge, and so it's evolved into what it is today. So it's another birthday out of the way.
Yep.
And of course Lee's still in Broken Hill, and at that point in time Louise had moved over, but when we were commuting she was still in the hill and she was staying with Lee, and then she came out and joined us once we got the house set up. And I was talking to Lee, I'd spent a bit of time with Mark Arbelaster at shows, and in his story he used to write for Street Machine, he was doing a thing called the Grunt Hunt. And he'd get a car like this car, and then each month he would make changes to get it quicker on the strip. And this particular car was a factory V8, and they changed the inlet manifold, changed the cam. What else they do? All different bits and pieces, converter, then a churn, a chip, and a this and a that, and then changed diff ratios and all the little bits and pieces to work out and follow. And I can't remember exactly what time it got down to, but it was relatively quick on that stock look, just like that with the stock wheels.
Bit of a sleeper.
Lee and Arby did a deal, broke it by myself, and we picked that up, and then obviously Dad got on the buff and give it a bit of a tidy up.
Give it the Astill touch.
Yeah, got some wheels for it and took the rear wing off it and all those sorts of things, and sent it back to Broken Hill with him. But before he got to go home, took the opportunity to take it up to Wizard and see how to go. So he had a bit of a ball that night, and just another part of that whole deal of being a car family, I guess. So to give that a fair hiding over a couple of year period.
Not our Lee, surely.
No, not of course. So then we're back on the job. Back on the job with the car, and I'd made up my mind I wanted to have a later style dash, and I'd sort of looked at all of the European, the round top with the Smith style gauges and all that sort of stuff. And I was going to make one. I'd seen them, where they make it out of foam and then fiberglass it and make it all. And I was at Summernats, and I'm in the car audio, and there's this little car there with exactly what I wanted for a dash in it. And I didn't even know I was with now. And I said, "What sort of car is that?" Because I didn't even know what it was. And it was an S15 Nissan. And I went, "That's perfect." So I did some measurements. It was pretty darn close, as like you do these things. So I ended up getting a rough dash and worked out I could make it fit. Then I bought another one to get enough parts. And then what you can see there now is the air conditioning is aftermarket heater air conditioning unit, and then I put an RRS under dash pedal and boosters, so I've got the flat firewall, and it was all tucked in behind. So I've got my aircon, I've got the heater, demister, all the things for rego. And then the bar running through the middle was the main support bar, and then I made the brackets and all to support what you can see there now, which was the top and bottom, and where you can see the filler on the plastic. That's where I had to modify it to get it to suit. You know, I needed the switches for out of the Mustang.
Yep.
A bit similar, I guess, to what we're doing now with Boss XC.
Yes, yeah.
So working down the track with that, and then I just cut the centre console out and boxed that in. And then I ended up running a set of moon gauges in it, that classic black appearance. And then that's the RRS front end. So that was RRS, their first development of the 6-spot, and they ended up branding those with their own logo eventually. And was the first time I'd started working with Phil Kergene.
Yes.
From Fuelworks.
Yep.
So Phil at that stage was doing it sort of after hours, so he'd come over at night and him and I'd work out what we were going to do, and I'd show him how I was doing things and he'd explain to me how he wanted to do it. We did a lot of hardline on the car. He spent a lot of time to get it how I wanted it to look, and the same deal there, we're just getting everything to work. So we got power steering, air conditioning, heater, all operative.
All luxury items and all
and
that to work.
And my plan was to keep everything sort of low and tidy, and I made all my own bracketry and all for the power steer and the air to get it how I wanted it to look, and then everything ran out under the guards in hardline. So the ones running in around behind the suspension, there's the heater lines.
Yep.
And then the small lines there, I just got some cheap Bundy to make the shape, so I could then take it to the air conditioning guy to make it out of the proper air conditioning stuff, because it's got a different double flare on it. So we made all that up, and then that's all the RRS front end. So get it all in, get it mocked up, make sure it all fits.
Yeah.
And that's just a bit of Phil's work there, up and around with the hardlines, the fuel line running around there. So that's what I was saying about that Porsche.
Yes.
You know, when I said that looks like me. Yeah, because it had that nice look. And then that was another set of pipes I made. So the muffler and all on that, I worked with Potsy from Veriflow.
Yep.
And he's retired now, actually. So I got all that fitted up and all done. And then I was talking to the boys from Spray Fever, Gareth Davies and his partner, and I said, I'm going to get into the bog shortly. And they said, you can't work in that nice new workshop of yours and fill it up with bog dust. I said, no, that'd be good. No worries. He goes, no, bring it up our joint, do it up there. I go, no. So they taught me into it, and I'm probably glad they did in the end, because it made it easier to get up and go to work type of deal. It was a 45-minute commute.
Yep.
And I did that 6 days a week for 6 weeks, and I did all the filler work on my own over a 4-week period, and then John Aristis from PPG came in on the 5th week, and him and I rubbed and he painted for 2 weeks, and then on the last day or so he pulled another rep in to give him a hand just to knock over the last of it, because he needed to get back to work as well. So it was really good to be able to go up there and do that and have a bit of support and someone to have lunch with, and a bit of banter as well.
Yep, keep you motivated.
So it, like always, it got a little bit carried away. It was meant to be a street car. and Gareth kept saying, you can't leave that like that. I said, of course I can. He goes, no, just put a bit in there. I'm like, oh. So it ended up being a full-blown show, of course. So a bit of filler. There's Johnny with his back to us in the booth. So I put a textured finish underneath. So we sealed it up, blocked it all out, and then painted it in the black, and then put a textured clear over it, because I wanted it to have that real streetable feel about it. And these look like they're running out of sequence, but while he's painting those, like I'm rubbing, and then he basically was in the booth for the 2 weeks painting while I was rubbing. So it was a big 6 weeks.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah, and that's the other rep that come in on the last day or so and give us a hand. And then the engine bay was black, but it had the red, then the orange, then the black, so that's why it's taped up with the orange. And then the gloss bay engine bay. So all of that done, back in the trailer, back home, and I can't remember, but it was down to months to go, the usual story, and it still had to go down to the trimmer and get a bit done. So we started putting the stereo in it. So that's Yogi there. He's a local guy I met through the car club, and he gave me a lot of help in the build phase. And that's Phil's OCD.
Yes.
with all the pipe work. So back when this car was built, you couldn't buy black fittings or silver fittings. Everything was red and blue. And what they used to do back then was make it all up out of red and blue. Then he'd dip it, put it in caustic. Take the anodising off, send it off to an anodiser, get it anodised to bring it back to get that look. Where nowadays you can actually buy the silver fittings or buy black fittings. So yeah, fit out stage, and I pretty much bought all repo stuff for the lights and all, and that was that universal aircon, and then all those other lines and all now are done, and then I just bought a universal wiring kit for it. And then that's it now, ready to go to the trimmer. So it had to go down to have carpets done. And then I went back, so I had to go to Shepparton from here, dropped it down to Rod Lingard. Rod was doing that. While he was doing that, I'm then painting engines and all the other components. Then the car came back, and then he delivered the seats. So he basically mocked it all up, but hadn't finished the seats. So that's the engine there now, all ready in aluminium, all sanded up, to go off to the dyno, so in the back of the cruiser. So I took that over to
is that
Shane?
Shane's
Race Engines. So Gary had built the motor, and I wanted to run it on the dyno, so we'd run the cam in, and then I like to run them on the dyno, get the heat out of it, get it run in, make sure everything's sweet. So we went through that process, and I've got a little video there that'll probably run in a minute. I have to work out how to do the voices with that. Once I got it back from there, I then pulled it all apart again, like all the ancillaries and all off, and then we painted all of the components in the matte silver. And that's what you can see in the video there now. And then that's it going in its new home. And then in the background there, so that's Dean Hess landing on Phil's work truck there. And that's a young Phil Kurgene there. His trendy sunnies on.
I don't think he's got as many tattoos there, has he?
No, he's pretty clean there. So then these next lot of photos I've got here are just, it was a photo shoot done by Paul Beck for Extreme Magazine. And he gave me a set of those. So that's me in the shirt, mate, with the work pants on. And then they were the original rocker covers I had done. So they was a logo that I'd sort of come up with, and you can't quite see through the middle. It's got the Master Craftsman, and I think there's one up under here. So that was the trial for that to be done. And then, of course, I eventually changed that to Astill Design, and that'll be in the next video. So it was all silver. Sean, I'm trying to think now, Sean's aluminium did the radiator for me. And there's that nice looking dash. And I had two steering wheels. I had that one, for looking like a 60s. And then I had a little Sparko, I think, by memory. It wasn't a Momo, it was a Sparko. That when I went up for Powercruise and stuff, you had something that you could, drive it a bit better with.
It did work well. It did look
it
worked. Really
yeah,
good.
And I had extra clips in it for harnesses. So when I went to Powercruise, we'd take the resonator off the back, make it a bit louder, put the harnesses in it, and a nice steering wheel. And then the second or third time I went up to Powercruise, I put some stickier tyres on it, and that was a bit of fun. It was really good. And then that classic usable boot, it still stepped down so the SQ could fit, and it was good. I drove it, I reckon, to Summernats 4 or 5 times, down to Canberra, which is a couple of hours, 2.5 hours. It's been as far as Newcastle a couple of times. And then
did a lot of K's in it.
Drive up to Powercruise and throw it around the track for a day or two, and then drive it home again. Yeah, it was really good. And then I left a lot of the design to Rod Lingard because he's a really nice hot rodder trim, and I wanted that sort of feel about it. And that's it in that first guide. So that was the drawing, and that's what I built. And then over a period, I had it 10 years, and you're seeing the next one, it had a couple of evolutions. So I, changed wheels and then put some stickers on it and messed about with it a bit. But I was really happy in the initial phase. And then you just, like you do, you sort of go, wouldn't mind a change of wheels or do something with it. So we got it built, and then we head off to Summernats 21, first time up. It's Yogi and I. So we'd put the thrash in at the end to get it ready, and this was in the studio with Street Machine doing the Street Machine article, which I've got somewhere else in the photos here. And it's always nice to get that point, you know. You've put the yards in, the car's looking good, it's how you want it to be, and do the shoot. And then that's Lee and I cruising around the track at Summernats at that first event. Yep. It's got 21 on the windscreen, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's the right picture.
There you go.
And then I went in the events, and I ended up... The RRS stuff was really very early in the piece, and a lot of the stuff I had was almost there. I was a bit of a test mule with some of it.
Yeah, a bit of a prototype type.
Yeah, and the third arm on the rear end, I ended up, didn't have enough support and ripped the front clean out of the 9-inch. So that was a bit of a bugger on that first event, but we got that sorted. But it drove really well, and when it broke, I did the go well, and I chucked the Yui and then clutched it, you know, being a bit of a hoon, and bang, that was the end of that. Ripped the guts clean out of the diff. So we sorted all that out, and then I wanted to take it up to Motorex because, you know, PPG had supported it and RRS had supported me and a few other people in the build. So I wanted to take it up to Motorex and put it on show, but not to be judged. And when I took it up there, Owen said to me, Owen Webb says, "What do you mean you don't want it judged?" I said, "Well, I brought it up to show people. I don't want it judged because it didn't build it for this environment." He goes, "Oh, no, I'll do it right." I said, "Owen, I know what I'm doing. I don't want it judged." So, because the only option there was you go in street, and it was too good for street.
Yep.
And the other option was you go in elite, and to me, it wasn't an elite car because I don't want to put a car in elite unless I think I've got a reasonable expectation that it's going to be up to the number.
Yep.
And so I put it in that event, and I don't know whether it was the following year or 2 years later, they actually started Street Elite. And when they did that, the article, I think it was in Street Machine, basically used this car as an example of why the sport needed to get that extra class, because people were starting to build street cars with elite paint and trim, but they didn't want to have that full painted undercarriage.
Yep.
And I'd gone down that track with this car. So in the next episode, you'll see where you and I actually spent a lot of time polishing and cleaning to get it up to what I thought was the needed level to then go into Street Elite.
Yep.
And that'll be part of the next deal. So that was it on display. Put together a stand and put on a good show, I thought. And then I've just got a few photos here now of it on the street, because that's what it was built to do. And these are photos either people have given me or, you know, they put on Facebook or something, and I'm not even sure where that one was. And the next one's clearly going through the S's heading down Narroway, when you go through Kiama. And then that photo's not from the Mustang.
No, that's heading back
I
to the
haven't
hill.
driven that far, so you know that road.
I know that road.
So that's heading back to Broken Hill. So Lee's still in the hill, and he's got an older style home out there that he wanted to do something with the bathroom. So Dad's got roped in.
You've had a bit of experience in these
A
Renaults.
bit of a Renault man. So I've gone out there, and that's young Lee on the jackhammer. So you can tell by the nice pink tiles we're doing the bathroom.
Yep.
And putting a spar in. So we've gutted that out and done a bit of render, and I don't know, I think I was there a week. Something like that.
Get in,
That'd
get it done,
be
get it out.
Get out, yep. And I haven't got a finish shot, but it obviously was looking pretty flash. So that was just another week out in the hill, back on the tools. And then that was sort of mid-year, and we're just sort of cruising along really. We're backwards and forwards still, because, you know, family's there, and then we're back to another Summernats. So at Summernats 21, Rare Spares started their Legend Award. And Rod Hadfield very fittingly won the first one. And on the cruise night, I was fortunate enough to be awarded the lovely helmet.
Yes.
So 2009. And it's an interesting one because it's not actually a Summernats award.
No.
It's a Rare Spares award that's
more of an
presented.
industry award.
It's an industry award that's presented at Summernats, but it's not actually a Summernats award. And they ended up having 10 of those, and there won't be any more. So basically 10 of us.
See Johnny Bower in the front of the car there.
Johnny's driving.
Yep.
Yep. And Heather there with me, doing a bit of a lap. So that's Dave Rayner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was a really big night. And as you know, I'm a bit hard to surprise.
Yes.
So when they're trying to set me up, so I didn't know it was going to happen, I was sort of a bit clued on, and Heather's saying,
You smelled a rat.
You won't trick him. But anyhow, it was a really good day, and it's a nice photo of it there.
Oh.
So,
must be going back to the hill, Howard.
back in the Land Cruiser, heading out the bush, and I don't mind a lamo.
He likes a cake.
What don't mind what do you call that? It's a lemon meringue.
Lemon meringue tart, isn't it?
So it's Dad's time for a bit of cake. So we're up to 80th now. So obviously my brother and my sister, Reg and Colleen there, and Dad at the house, and then the family's continuing to grow. So partners and kids, all looking pretty good. So yeah, that was just another trip out there. It was a pretty quick one, I think. And I can't remember, and I said I was going to talk about it last episode with the rolls. And I know I don't have any photos. But Dad had done so much for me over the years. But it might have been that time, I reckon. We went out there, and I was going out for 4 or 5 days. Because it's like a day and a half drive each way, and then if you're there 3 days, all of a sudden you've gone a week, you know. So I said to Dad, "I'm coming out for your birthday." He said, "Oh, when you're out, I'd like you to paint the rolls." I said, "Dad, I'm coming out for like a few days." He goes, "Yeah.
Won't take long.
It won't take long." So it was just from body line up. It was two-tone and it had a pin line. He said, "Just back mask the line, just in acrylic. It'll be right." So
master of the understatement.
You never said no to Dad. Like if Dad said, "I'd like you to paint the rolls," you go, "Yes, Dad."
Okay.
Now, how am I going to do that? Yeah. So I did do that. So I went out, and it had a few cracks in the lead and stuff. So I just ground out the lead, a bit of bulb, tidied up the problems that he had with it. Blew a couple of coats of iridescent acrylic, so he'd got some paint organised for me. Put that on it, and then it was hot. I'm trying to think. January, Dad's birthday, so it was hot,
stinging.
So I stuck it in the sun after I painted it, and then come in the next morning and give it a buff. So I could go home. Yeah. But
the world's biggest proving oven.
I'm going to have to find some more photos now after we're done. But yeah, so that I'm pretty sure that was on that trip. So then the next photo, it looks like the same crew, but it's not. This is actually back in Wollongong now we're getting towards Lloyd's 21st. So Dad drove over. And I said to him, he said, "Oh, when I get there, which way do I go?" I said, "I'll come up and meet you at the top of the mountain, and I'll drive your car down, because you're not driving it down the hill."
No.
I'll be right. And I'm going, no, it's not going to happen. How hard can it be? So, you know where I get it from, don't you? So that's his brother with him there, and nephew, and obviously Lee and Louise and my sister. So, of course, we've got a bit of a family thing happening, because it's Louise's 21st. So we've got a shed now and a bit of a party room, but not quite enough room. So we've set the place up to be able to accommodate, I can't remember how many people we had, but it was a few. And it was fancy dress. Well, I guess you can pick that.
Yeah.
You like my hat?
Dad, I was going to say Dad's sombrero gives it away, but I wasn't sure about Zorro on the left.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was about 4 things you could pick. And it had to fit within that, and I can't remember exactly what they all were. Yeah, so that's out on my lawn, nice and green, and then Louise in the middle, obviously there, and then that's the neighbours and their kids that come fully dressed for the event, which was
everyone
pretty cool.
got into it. That was good.
It was a good show, including Dad. So out the front here, I actually put in a marquee, hired a marquee and dance floor and lights, and we had a wow of a time. It's a great night.
You Astills know how to party.
Like a party. Louise loves a party.
She
Lee
does.
not so much. Lee prefer to get a present. Like, "I'll take the cash, Dad." But Louise likes a party. So I've got this nice car now, and everyone wants me to take it to a show. And I'm going, no. So Paul Beck says to me, "Bring it over to his show at the hockey."
Unadera Hockey.
Yeah, at the pavilion
Stadium.
there. So, of course, by now we've met and playing a bit of golf, and, of course, that's your young bloke that's now not young. That's in 19 now.
He's 19 now, and he's probably a little taller than Howard, but anyway, he's not that little anymore.
Yeah, can I sit in it, Dad?
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of little videos here just that you took on the way home, heading back home.
Yep.
So that's the bit that I like, that you could do a local show and drive it there and drive it home.
It was only 10 minutes up the road.
Yep.
And it was very streetable, that car.
It was, yeah. It really worked how I wanted it to work, and I've got some video for the next one where we're going up through the national park and driving in the rain and all sorts of things.
I think I remember reading one of the articles where you said, it was sort of built that you could do like a Targa Tasmania, but you didn't need the roll cage and all the bells and whistles sort of things.
Targa has like an event that follows Targa.
Yeah.
So you're not competing,
more sedate,
but I think it's 130k limit or something. But I never got to do that. I did track days and stuff, but I never actually did a 5-day event, which I probably should have done, but I never did. So this was up at Wilton, heading up to Powercruise one weekend, and I just thought it was a good photo opportunity time.
Absolutely.
Took a couple of snaps of it. And then this one's one over at Camilla Grange, just a Sunday morning show.
Yep. The racecourse.
Bit of a photo snap opportunity. Oh no.
Oh no, back to the hill.
Going back to the hill. Unfortunately.
Not for great reasons.
No. So Dad had got to 83 and unfortunately the old Jack the Dancer got him. So we just had a little bit of a charity golf day the other day.
We did.
That sort of reminds you of these things. So the old
Check Your Tackle
charity, which
run
is
by Wayne Earl,
all about men's health.
Yeah.
And make sure that you get
so you need to go and get
your
checked
bowel
out
when they send the
bowel
thing
screening.
in the mail and the prostate and all the rest of it. So
well, he made a good point too on that, Howard, that it's not the old, the dreaded finger that guys worry about. It's a simple blood test.
That's it.
Just go and get it done, okay?
So Dad had prostate and got through it in his 60s, and then he ended up with the bowel cancer. So nice shot there, Mum and Dad. This is back at the house after the happening. So Dad was in a lot of clubs and involved in a lot of different things. So we actually held the service at like a venue, not a church.
Yep.
What am I looking for? The word there. Anyhow, like a hall.
Yep.
And this was the local car club that came out for a guard of honour. And Dad was in a lot of clubs. And I think I've got a little slide here for that in a minute. But it's a really nice service. This was getting to the point now where you're sort of going, well, I'm almost on my own now. Like head of your own family, because everyone around you is gone. And he had a big part and a big play in everything we did. So a really difficult time that we all got to go through at some point in our life, and massive turnout. Which we expected, and that's when we set it up to be able to do that. And then we had a really, really good wake afterwards, and all that sort of stuff. It was really good. And to give you an idea of what he was in, these were all the active clubs he was still in at 80 years of age. So
and active was the key word.
And you see there the Australian Order of Old Bastards.
Yes.
Which actually exists. And then the one next to it, the Brotenhill Stirrers Club.
I'm surprised he wasn't president of that, but anyway.
Yeah. The Brotenhill Stirrers Club, Dad was one of the founding members of that, and they used to raise money in Broken Hill where they had, cans in the pubs, charity cans and stuff, and they used to do all of that. And then, of course, the Speedboat Club and the Rifle Club.
The Model T Club, the Rolls
Pontiac
Royce
Club, all those sort of things.
Motorcycles.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. And he had all of those things, and of course he was a very long term and had really committed a lot to the Rotary organisation, was president of the local club. He'd travelled overseas and all with it. So it's a big turnout. And then you'll see there that we've all got a hat on. My dad always wore one of these. You make sure that's on right.
Yep. Very stylish.
Very stylish. So my whole life, Dad always wore one of these hats, and he used to send them down the line. So you get the new one, and then the next one becomes the older one, and then you get the work one. So down the workshop, even when he's working, he used to wear one of these hats.
There was always a hat.
And he always wore one of those, and there was quite a few of them at the house. So we decided we'd all wear one, all the pole bearers would wear one, and just as a bit of a tribute to that, and he was known for that. And there's that growing family, unfortunately on not such a nice day, but we got through it, and
you give him a good send-off.
Give him a good send-off, and I still, to this day, as you know, oh, this was Dad's, or Dad used to always say, oh, that's, you know, so that's just the way it goes. And when he passed, he still had quite a few cars. So when we're trying to do the estate part of it, we looked at what he had and who wanted what, because there was the rolls. And then he bought this car, this Cadillac, to be his last new car or good car. And someone had brought it out from the States and converted it when it was only a year or two old. And then
it's a town car, isn't it? How is it?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and he'd bought it to be the everyday driver, but it didn't work out quite that well, because if something did go wrong with it, no one knew how to fix it on the road and all that. And he ended up putting this in the shed and then bought an LTD, and that's what they had the accident in. But so there was, this one was still there, and the rolls, as you know, I think he still had 6 registered cars or something when he was 80.
Fleet owner.
So I opted to take the Caddy on, and that photo there's a couple of photos here, was about 30 k's outside of Broken Hill, and I've got the 8-track going, you know, with Dean Martin and Bing Crosby.
The old one.
It lasted for about 30 k's. Then we put some Pink Floyd in.
It's a comfy car to ride in, though.
It's a beautiful car. Yeah,
6-seater. It's a big 6-seater.
It was a 6-seater, and it was a V8 front-wheel drive.
5-litre V8, I think. Yeah,
which was a bit unusual.
Used to smoke them up, I believe.
You did a little bit of work on that.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's me just hanging out. It was a cool thing, and I ended up. I had it. You'll see later in the next edition. I had a bit of a shuffle up and move some things on. I ended up deciding to sell it, but it was cool to drive it around and have some memories of Dad and what happened. So, you know, we worked our way through that, and what I've got sort of to show everyone now is just some of the magazine coverage and how some of that took place on the Mustang. So this is Street Machine magazine. And when I was talking to the magazine about, like they rang me and said, we'd like to shoot it, and we've got a guy that's doing some really cool stuff, but you'd need to be a little bit out there to let us do it. And I've gone, well, I'm pretty much, give it a go. Tell me what's going on. So this was an era where these sort of shots where it looks like the car's driving was the go, and it was a really good article, but you can see that shot there looks like, you know, from the rear it's just driving down the road flat out. Well, to get that look, what they do is they suction cup
a big boom,
a gantry off the front and back of the car, whatever part of it that they're shooting, and then hang, you know, the big SLR off it, and the car's just rolling, but the shutter's open. So while that's going on, the background's all going blurry and the car's in shot. So that's how they go about it. So that shot there is done like that.
Very effective.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool, and it didn't damage the car. I mean, people panic about it might be going to damage the car, but it didn't have any effect. And then that was the one on the front. It was a bit weird sitting in there with this big thing hanging out the front.
You had to get not too close to the trees on the left. Yes.
So yeah, it was another box ticked. Really something that I hadn't done before and was interesting. And then this one was obviously done in the workshop, and Paul Beck came around and shot that. And very early on, actually, did a nice job.
Yeah, it was in a few magazines.
A couple of mags. And then I think I've got them in here. It was in another car audio magazine. And then that photo there is a reminder of this. So you've seen the sort of stuff I do to try and give stuff to the judges, but I made one of these, and other people have done it now, or before me even. It was an actual build album of the car. And I did that on Officeworks, you know, like when you do your holiday snaps. So I put that together, and then people, once they've seen it, oh, can I buy one of those? So I ended up doing some and selling them. But it's interesting, you think, oh, I'll whip one of those together, but I had about 40 hours on the computer to put it all together.
Thing, but
it was just all part of that package and the evolution of what sort of goes into the build and what you're doing and how it all goes about. So yeah, that was a bit of fun. And then, of course, I've got this car now that I can drive. So where the others were always sat in the shed and didn't do much. So I took the opportunity to take the Powercruise. I'm not sure which event this was, whether we were over the other side
this
or
is a
whether...
later one, because I noticed the number plates have changed.
Yeah, so I tried to get that plate a long time ago and it wasn't available in New South Wales, and I was looking for a bit. I had the XXX 302 on it, and I wanted to have a bit of a change, and I just typed it in and it was there, and I went, cool, I love that. Yeah. So, and that now obviously is on the ute. So yeah, this was, a few years in. Nothing else has changed. I think that's still got the intros on it, and the badges and all are still the same, and the big Astill design on the boot, on the back window. So it ran at the drags. The car was never designed to do that.
No.
So it ran 14 or something, I think. But it went through the traps at just under 100 mile an hour. So most people that, the guys I know are sort of saying, it'll run a reasonable time. You just got to get it to hook up. And I'm going, well, I'm not interested.
It had the wrong diff in it and all that sort of stuff.
More so the tyre. I just couldn't get it to hook up. And actually Gareth was there because he's a big drag racer, and he said, "How just walk it off the line. Don't try and leave hard." And I actually got the best time by not leaving hard because I couldn't just get it to hook up. So it was just an interesting experience to do that. And I'd run it in a couple of the motor carners. It might have been at Paul Beck's show actually when I did that. But it was funny because I'd been to the drags a couple of times, not very often. And Phil Kurjan was there, and he used to drag race. He's going, "You just go, you'll be right." So I've gone out and I've gone straight through the beam, and I'm staging on the back wheels. The guy's up there going, "Back Howard," and I'm going, "Huh?" And I'm going, "Oh shit!"
It's because the helmet was blocking the view. That's what it was.
Whatever it was. I needed the guy at the front telling me what to do.
Yeah.
But we ran out of time, and then this is what I love. Over at Eastern Creek, and this would have been Powercruise. So this is a bit later again because the wheels are changed now. So I changed. There were 17s before. This is an 18.8, and you can see I got the harness on.
Sticky
and
tyres.
the little wheel. And I used to love it. I'd go up there and just take people for a joyride and absolutely rape it. I mean, have a really good time. As you can see, there's under a bit of load, hooking around there. But it was good fun to drive up there. So that's pretty much getting to the end of the deal. So the new house is done. We've made the move. Louise has moved over with us. Settling down, trying to work out what we're doing. We need to make some money. Can't be sitting around. I'm only 50. Need to get back into the groove. And we decided that we didn't want to go into beds and food because we'd done that most of our life. So we thought we'd have a go at retail. And we'll tell that story next time. But there's a couple of photos here. That one's obviously the three of us, Louise and Heather and myself, at our new store called Man Talk. And that's out the front. Obviously the Mustang parked out the front, doing a couple of happy snaps. And I went to a lot of trouble to set that up how I thought would work. And someone decided to have a global financial crisis, which didn't sort of help us much. We hung in there for a fair time, and I'll tell that whole story.
Wasn't in the plans
next week. So it was an interesting exercise to go through. I wish I never did it, but there's a lot of things in life like that.
That's right.
So we didn't lose everything, but we spent 5 years not getting much of a gain. But the upside of that is that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now, because I started doing some cars to pay the bills, and we ended up where we are. So next episode, we'll set up that new business. We'll do a few more laps with the Mustang. And the photo I've got there is you once again give me a hand, where we tidied up the Mustang and took it down to Summernats 25. And I tarted it up a bit to give Chick a bit of a surprise with the 25 logos and stuff on it, and went down to have another genuine go at Grand Champion. And as we all know, that didn't quite work, but we had a good go at it.
We had great fun.
So we'll tell that story next time. So thanks for joining us. We've come in right on time again. We've got the clock going today.
We remember to hit the play.
So that's working. So thanks for joining us, and if you can work out how to do it. People are saying to me, Howard, I'd love to subscribe, but I can't work out how to do it.
We'll have to do a how-to, Howard.
We'll have to do a how-to. But you just got to have a Google account or you've got to have a YouTube account.
Yep.
And then you can go in and click the button. If you haven't got one, just follow the
Doesn't cost you
prompts.
anything.
Yeah, it's free. Follow the prompts.
Yep.
And once you've done that, you can then make a comment and like and do all the other things. But it really helps my cause and our ability to go through.
And Howard loves to answer the comments.
I do.
There's some funny ones. But anyway.
There's some classics. And of course, we need to thank Lovels for their support that lets us keep doing it. And what's going to happen next episode is at the end of that, I'm going to actually put in all of the cars that I've now done for customers that'll get us to the end of the biography period.
Yep.
But once we've done that one, you're not off the hook, Dale, because we're going to come back and we're
just getting warmed up.
That's it. And we're going to come back and we're going to start back at rock solid. And we're going to do a build series where all you're going to hear about and see is the cars, how I did it, why I did it, and I've got a huge amount more photos of all of those builds, and I can get into it a bit more. They'll probably be about the same length to what we're doing now, but it'll be all about the cars. And we've got 15 to do.
There's a few.
So I think eight are mine.
Yep.
And then another 7 customer cars. It'll go on from there. And that will continue on this fortnightly cycle, thanks to Lovels being on board and helping us to do that, because there is a cost in relation to editing and all those sorts of things to be able to bring it. So thanks for joining us. And what else? Go to the merch.
Yep.
Check
out
it out.
The merch.
It'll
be interesting to see how many comments get made at the end of the video about this next episode and what's happening with the cars. And
Thanks for your time.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Howard.
Bye.
Cheers.